Hey guys.
Hello.
Everyone can hear me?
Yes.
Great, great. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining.
Absolutely.
So we had close to 200 people registered for this event, so we should have a good turnout.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Hello. Yes, I want to queue in for the meeting.
So does anyone have any questions before we start? Or everyone's good to go?
Right over here.
Hey Jay, thanks for joining us.
Okay. Hello?
Hi, Director Donaldson. How are you? So we'll probably wait until 4:02. I'll probably just make some brief remarks and then turn it all over to you. And then after you're done, feel free to turn it back to me, and then we'll.
Hey, Phil,
So,
okay, I heard you, Stephen. Thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Hello.
So, okay. Welcome, everyone. My name is Stephen Dudek. I am the Education Outreach Coordinator with the Office of Tenant Advocate. I want to thank you all for attending. Today, we're focusing on eviction prevention, the rental assistance program. We have a great plethora of experts with you today to answer your questions about eligibility, about the application process, available funding. So it's going to be a great program today. Just a couple of housekeeping. Please keep your phones on mute, as well as your computers. Background noise can be very distracting in this realm. I hope not to mute all and then unpause it for the speaker. It can be very distracting and loses the message. So please remain muted. If you have questions, concerns, comments, please put them in the chat box. I have my colleague Joshua Drumming seeing the chat box. I hope you form any questions. The layout for today is we will have Director Donaldson. We'll have Director Donaldson speak, and then after that, we'll be inviting members of the community-based organizations who are overseeing all of the programs, answer a couple of questions. We'll go through all of the programs and then have time for questions at the end. So again, thank you for joining. Please have all your phones and computers muted. And I would like to welcome to the screen, I guess we're saying, to the floor, Director Donaldson. Thank you for coming, and the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. For those who I haven't met either virtually or in person, I'm Polly Donaldson. I'm Director of DC's Department of Housing and Community Development. I've been Director since Mayor Bowser appointed me in 2015. And we do, as you know, are responsible for the production and preservation of affordable housing in the district and revitalizing neighborhoods and communities across the district. And we do that through a number of different programs and all. But what I want to talk about today is what we are doing in response to the COVID pandemic, and in specifically what we're doing to help prevent eviction, which I know is something that together with our partners at the Office of Tenant Advocate, at the Department of Human Services, at the DC Housing Authority, at the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development, and also at the DC Housing Finance Agency, we are all working together on our eviction prevention strategy and looking both at the immediate, the medium term, and then the longer term as well. And I know that we have a lot of speakers on the panel that are going to be able to talk very specifically about program needs and program requirements. But I have one overarching message for everyone on this call, and that is if you or someone you know or a member of your family is faced with the having trouble paying rent, and due to the economic crisis that we are in, and if you are facing eviction after the moratorium expires, meaning that you are in a position where you're going to be in rent arrearages to your landlord, we can help. There are resources. You cannot be evicted now during the eviction moratorium, which now has been extended to December 31st. And not only, though, are there protections for you that the Office of Tenant Advocate, that the Attorney General's office, that are available for you to in the event that your landlord does attempt to serve a notice to you, which that's actually not allowed at this time. If that is the case, those resources can help you. But we also have rent assistance available right now. There are several different programs. You're going to hear more of the details from the panel, but I want you to know that our agencies in the administration are working together. My team communicates with the Department of Human Services team, I think on a daily basis, related to the coordination between our locally funded emergency rent assistance program, ERAP, which I know Allison is going to spend more time talking about today, Allison Tucker from DHS, but also we have federally funded through some of the COVID-19 CARES Act funding to provide rent assistance, and those funds come directly to the Department of Housing and Community Development from HUD. And so we have all told across all district agencies, with a portion of our FY20 money that we were expending and our FY21 budgets, we have close to $40 million in rental assistance that is available through the community-based organization housing counseling network that we at DHCD help support, and that the Department of Human Services uses as well. I'm just going to briefly walk through some of those programs, and I know that in the chat function, I'm sure that we're going to be able to put in some links there that I think are really important for you to have access to. All information on rent assistance programs are available from the coronavirus.dc.gov/rent link. And so if Stephen, if someone could put that into the chat, that would be super helpful. Maybe Ruben just did. Ruben Foreman, my special assistant from DHCD. Thank you, Ruben. That's the link. You click on that, you will get to the entire list of rent assistance programs, many of which all of which you're going to hear about today. But you also can call DHCD's Housing Resource Center. We are open virtually, not in person, but virtually. If you call 202-442-7200, we will make sure that you get directed to the right person, program, and organization that's going to be able to be your one-stop shop to help you access rent assistance. Obviously, the Office of the Tenant Advocate, they're there to advocate for tenants, very much so. Their number, 202-719-6560. That is where you can get assistance, particularly if your landlord is taking an action that is not allowed currently under the state of emergency here in the district. And of course, you can always
that last number, please.
Sure, it's in the chat, 202-719-6560. And then of course, if you even if you don't have all of those numbers, you can just dial 311 and they will redirect you to DHCD or to the appropriate resource that will help you. So I just want to start off with that particularly. And then I do want to say that we, in March, once the emergency was declared, used some of our current year funding from HUD before the CARES Act was passed to step up a tenant-based rent assistance program, TBRA, and that is being administered by Housing Counseling Service and the Latino Economic Development Center, and that is specifically for tenants who are in what's called naturally occurring affordable housing in small buildings where there was a great risk that the housing would be, their housing situation would become very unstable without payments of rent assistance, meaning their landlords may not have be able to sustain the building operations if there is not payment of rent. And so we've been able to, through those two organizations, be able to step up that program. In addition, when the CARES Act did fund, we did two things with the funding that we received from HUD for that. And all told, that's added up to about $16 million altogether. And that has been both to step up the coronavirus housing assistance program, which is our federally funded housing rent assistance. Up to 6 months of rent arrears can be covered by the program. And you can get that by applying to some of the organizations you're going to hear from in just a moment: the United Planning Organization, the Greater Washington Urban League, and Housing Counseling Services as well. So they will give you details and phone numbers and email or internet access address as well. But those are particularly important rent assistance programs. We also used a portion, $2 million of the CARES Act funding, to help support the housing and community development organizations, the nonprofits that are your lifeline. They are your point of entry. They are the way that you can access these resources. And so we have done $50,000 grants to 46 different housing and community development organizations to help bridge some of the extra expenses and costs related to COVID-19. And those grants are have been awarded and are being and checks are being cut, and we know that is being as someone, of course I know this from my former work as an executive director of a nonprofit organization, how critical resources are that are broad general support that's going to enable organizations impacted by COVID to still be able to continue serving the community in that way. I won't go into the details on ERAP, the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, but to say that is our longstanding locally funded rent assistance program. That is also a key component of our homeless prevention strategy. And again, I know Allison Tucker, who I worked with for many years, will be talking about that in just a moment. Remember also that landlords because the council in the emergency legislation that it passed stipulated that landlords, if asked, must provide you with tenants with a payment plan in order to, if there is an issue with rent arrears, and that you can space those payments out over the next year. And it's a way to try to stay as current as possible, or to have a plan for how you're going to be able to stay securely housed. And so that's another aspect as well. There's also some privately funded programs. If you're a resident of Ward 8, John Wall, the Washington Wizards, has established the 202 Assist program, where, again, through both Lydia's House, which is a Ward 8 based housing organization that is your access point for a payment of up to $1,000 to help with rent during the caused by the COVID-19 economic crisis, to give you some additional rental assistance. You can also reach out to housing counseling services for that as well. And again, I think there will be further on that. We are knowing very clearly that we need additional rental assistance from the federal government. Please let me finish, and I'll be happy to take questions. Rental assistance from the federal government. We are working very closely with the to advocate for that, providing information to national housing advocacy groups on what the needs are, the numbers of people that we're anticipating in the district who are going to face rent assistance or rent crisis or rent arrears. And I can only say that that we are hopeful that will be coming from the federal government, additional assistance. We know more needs to be done. We are expecting a surge, but let me tell you right now, there are funds available right now. And again, listen to very carefully to what the folks on the panel say, because they can tell you how to access those resources and how to begin to put a dent in if you are in a position where you're not able to pay your rent, or you're working with individuals who can't pay their rent. And this is, again, money is available right now. Stephen, that's really my presentation. I am happy if folks want to ask a couple questions now, if that's acceptable, or we can wait till later. But whatever you would like to do, Stephen.
Just unmute. Yes. So please remind everyone, if you have a question, put it into the chat box. So I do have a couple of questions coming in, Director Donaldson, since we have just a couple of minutes. So the funds, what funds are available to pay if you own FRSP, your portion of the rent?
I think that's a question that the Department of Human Services could probably answer better, because I know Allison Tucker is very familiar with FRSP and should be able to point you in the right direction on that. So I will defer to her.
Okay. Allison,
we should might as well just leave then.
Oh, guys.
I can answer that question.
Because they ain't trying to, they just pause mommy
Hold
mute
on one second. I'm just going to mute.
I keep playing it on. They doing too much. She's freaking dead.
Okay, guys, just remember, please, only the presenters speak, just so we can have the information. Allison, please go.
So, hi, good afternoon, everyone. So if you owe a portion of your rent to DHS, I'm assuming this is what that question is about. Someone in FRSP who's participating and their rent is being paid by DHS, and they owe their portion of the rent to DHS, you just need to contact your case manager for that, and they can help you and direct you with the right.
They told me if you have any questions, put it in the chat box.
Yes, everyone, if you have questions, please put in the chat box. It's very distracting with background noise and everyone coming in and out where the presenters can't be heard. So if you do have a question, please put it in the chat box, and that would be awesome. And if we do not get to your question, what will happen is I will follow up at the end of the session or sometime this week with the answer.
I'm not on the
Okay, so
computer, I'm on
please.
my phone, so I don't have a chat box.
Oh, yeah. So what I will do is you've gotten my email. So if you have any questions, you can email me as well, and I will be able to answer those questions for you. Everyone should have handouts from both OTA, DHCD, and LEDC. So the information is all there. So again, if you have any questions and you're able to, the chat box, if you're on your phone, you have my email. Please email me and I will get a response to you. Okay.
Stephen, real quick, Stephen, there's a lady on the phone that is hard of hearing and her family is trying to, is there any kind of interpretation services or something that you can do for those that may need those accommodations?
Yeah, so I did click on that. It should be what's it, closed captioned. If it's not working, I would have to focus on WebEx. What will happen is the session will be recorded and will be put onto our website with closed captioning as well. So there should be some service. If the closed captioning is not working at the moment, I apologize for that. I will try to see if I can get it up and going. But I did hit that box. Okay. Okay. Oh.
Said, can she clarify the question that I was trying to answer? So if Linda wants to clarify the question.
Hi, I'm Linda.
Yes.
Can I clarify? Okay, the person before she came to me, I'm a case manager, and she was with another organization, and so I moved her to PSH. But before she came to me, she owed monies. They paid portion of it. DHS did. She owed monies to FRSP every month, but she didn't pay her portion. So when she got to me, her amount she owes is close to $12,000. So I tried to do a reduction in her income and all that as a case manager. But okay, Lamonda, please have your family to actually mute you. I'm sorry, that's my client that's just hearing impaired. But I'm trying to get assistance because she now is moving into another program, but she owes arrears. She tried to go to ERAP to get assistance, and they told her that they can't pay themselves. It's double dipping. So where does she go? What other programs available for her to apply for to get assistance to pay that money? She wants to pay it back. She couldn't pay it back because of her income. So where do we go from here?
So are you a rapid rehousing provider?
No, I'm a PSH. I'm permanent supportive housing. We actually do applications for that.
Can you please email me after this meeting? And I'm going to connect you with the person. There's two people I'm going to loop in. You email me, I'll loop in two people who work with FRSP so we can get that solved.
And what is your email address?
It's something that can be, I'll put it in the chat.
And also the second question, the young lady that was on the line, Miss Lamonda Davis, who's hearing impaired, I tried to do closed caption with her and it's not working for me either as closed caption. So I don't know if it's working for her at her location. And we're not in the same room because of COVID. So they were trying to hook it up, but they can't get it. So her son was interpreting for her. So I apologize, they weren't on mute. But she also has arrears, and she also owes them too. So there'll be 2 clients I will come to you in reference to.
Okay, I can help you with
Okay,
that.
great. Okay. I'll look in the chat for the email address. I don't see it so far, but I'll keep looking.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
And again, I apologize to why the closed captioning isn't working. Again, this is a new format. I wish we could do this in person, but again, if we weren't in a pandemic, we may not have to have this meeting. Director Donaldson, the last question that I have, and then we'll continue on with the panel, is through the registration process and even in the chat box, there has been some concern in the timing of going through the application process from application process to get the actual funding. Can you speak to those concerns, and how long does it take from the start of the application process all the way to the end for the tenants to receive the funding from these programs?
Yep. Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think that there are some documents that are required. One of the tenant-based rent assistance program does need to be some documentation from the housing provider as well, and so we work, and the housing counseling agencies work with you to help you gather those documents and get them. The funds are flowing. There's about with both the tenant-based rent assistance and the CHAP program, the funds are flowing. I will say that applications are done through for the CHAP program through the common portal that DHS has. So you apply once, and then the CBOs, who you're going to hear from in just a moment, determine eligibility for either ERAP or for the CHAP program. And they have slightly different requirements and rules. The council just changed the ERAP program again last week at their meeting. So it does take a moment, but really it's a one-stop shop in that way. You don't have to go to different organizations. The same organizations that are implementing ERAP or implementing CHAP also implement ERAP. So it's coordinated within the organizations themselves. I think, as I said, the funds are flowing, and I think the systems are in place, and we're into the FY21 funding cycle for both the federal funds and for the local funds. So there's sufficient funds there right now, and I think that the processing that's done, I think you'll hear a little more detail about that from the community-based organizations that are implementing. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And thank you, Director Donaldson, for joining us today. We're going to move on to the panel discussion. And so the panel discussion is laid out that we'll hear from the community-based organizations of all 3 programs, and then we'll get into questions, because what I don't want is the questions to slow down the momentum, and I want you all to have this needed information. So the first program that we're going to focus on is the COVID-19 Housing Assistance Program, known as CHAP. And today we'll have from the Greater Washington Urban League, Sabrina Tobias, from the United Planning Organization, Mr. Ron Childs, from Housing Counseling Services, Julian Forth, and also we have the district's Affordable Housing Preservation Officer, Anna Van Balen. So if you guys can unmute yourselves, and I'm going to direct these questions. The questions are going to focus on eligibility, what the program covers, application process, and any information that the tenants need to know to satisfy these programs. So the first question, and I would direct it to Officer Anna Van Balen, what does the CHAP program cover?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. So sorry, so I'm trying to start my video here, but not start. Oh, there it is. So the CHAP program was created to assist anyone who earns up to 80% of the median family income for this area, and to help specifically with rent owed. And so originally, when we started the program in June, we could do up to 3 months of assistance, up to $4,250. Now we can do up to 6 months of assistance, so doubling that amount. And in order to qualify, you have to go through one of our CBOs. So I see all three representatives of all three groups here, including Housing Counseling Services, Greater Washington Urban League, and United Planning Organization. And so you can either call them directly or go through the portal that I believe has been put in the chat, and we can put that in the chat as well. So you can start the process to apply to obtain those funds. And so, we will have to collect information related to the income of each family member or each adult over 18 specifically. And then also, very importantly, and unlike ERAC, you have to demonstrate you've been impacted by COVID. And so what that means is that you have lost employment after the emergency started in March of this year. Or you have experienced increased medical expenses because either yourself or a family member has been impacted by COVID. And so that is going to be a key component to the application process, is being able to demonstrate that, because that is why we have been, sorry, my special helpers are here. And so, HUD has given us this funding to do this rental assistance, but it is connected to COVID-19. And so that is a critical component to the program. And so again, you have to earn up to 80% of the median family income. You have to owe rent for at least up to 3 months or potentially 6 months, and we do it in 3-month installments, and then it has to demonstrate some kind of impact related to COVID. And so I'm going to turn it over now to back to Stephen, so you can, I would love to hear from each of the 3 CBOs to provide additional information.
Great, thank you, and thank you to your little helpers as well. I'm sure my little helper may interrupt us in a little bit. So thank you for that information. Just to clarify, so now tenants can get up to 6 months of rent, and is there a cap? Like, I know it was 3 months and $4,250. Is it 6 months and $8,500? Is that the cap?
That is correct. And so because we could only pay backwards, we don't want people to have to wait till they have 6 months of need in order to apply. I think that's where our TBRA program is a better fit for those who know that they're not going to be able to pay their rent moving forward. And I see our partners from LEDC here present, who will talk later about that. So for CHAP, we can only do backwards, so 3 months at a time. We don't want people to have to wait the full 6 months to obtain assistance.
Great, thank you. So let's move on to the community-based organizations. Again, we have Greater Washington Urban League, United Planning Organization, and Housing Counseling Services. They all help manage and assess the applications for the CHAP program. So I'm going to direct my question first to Jay from Housing Counseling Services. How do tenants get involved in the process? Ms. Van Balen talked about contacting the 3 organizations, as well as filling out the portal from the Department of Human Services. What do you recommend tenants do, and what's the best way to go about the application process?
Yeah, I agree that the portal will be the best avenue for getting in contact with our agency. We recognize that there might be some technological challenges for people that are seeking assistance. And so you can also call us directly. We have a number 202-667-7339. Someone is there to work with people who might be having trouble accessing the portal, or if there is need for interpretation, or there's any sort of other barrier for getting connected to our agency. So again, that portal or contacting us directly would be the best avenues for getting in touch with us.
Okay, and so say if a tenant does connect or go through the portal, how is it distinguished that, say, Housing Counseling Services get the application, United Planning Organization gets the application, the Greater Washington Urban League? How is the process of who gets what application and who makes that determination?
Yeah, we do not make the determination through the portal for whom comes to our agency. That is something that's kind of outside of our hands, but we are assigned people to our agency based on their availability and the appointment slots that they choose. When they do come to us, they'll receive a link. So we have an initial webinar where we try to give general information about the chat program to make sure people understand what the program is, to understand the documents that they'll need for it, and their eligibility, and for them to determine if this really is the program for them. But that initial webinar is that first moment of contact with many who are seeking COVID-related assistance. Again, we don't decide through the portal who comes to our doors and who doesn't. The portal does that based on the schedule.
Okay, great. And yeah, if you could add that link to that webinar in the chat box, that would definitely be useful. Thank you. Thank you for answering those questions. I'm going to pass it on to Miss Sabrina Tobias. My question is, who is eligible for these programs or for a chat, and a tenant who receives subsidy or a voucher, are they eligible to use the chat funding? Is Ms. Tobias, can you hear me, Ms. Tobias?
Can you hear me? I had to unmute myself. At this time, no, they are not. Anyone that is currently receiving subsidy or on a voucher, with the exception of rapid rehousing, and it's kind of a case-by-case situation. It just depends. Some of them will be eligible, but no, because they're not eligible if they are receiving voucher assistance already.
Okay. And
Stephen? Steve.
Yes.
Yeah. Vouchers from the Housing Authority. The Housing Authority is doing recertifications to adjust the level of rent, and that is where anyone with a voucher, just to be clear, that they need to communicate with the Housing Authority, where you can get recertified and have your rent adjusted downward based on what your revised income is due to the COVID emergency. And they have funds for that to help with that shift and transition. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Ms. Tobias, just a clarification. So individuals who are in the rapid rehousing program can qualify for the chat program?
You broke up, and I think it's my connection. Can you repeat that?
Yes, so individuals who are in the rapid rehousing program, they are eligible to get the funding from the chat program.
We have had a few that were eligible for that, yes.
Okay, okay, great. And so the question I have for you, or the last question until we go on, is what makes a tenant eligible for the chat program?
If they were actually affected by COVID, meaning if they were laid off, if they became unemployed, if they were infected with COVID, if someone in their household is affected by COVID, and if their income has been reduced within the periods from beginning February 29th through May the 31st was the original date, but it's from February 29th forward.
Okay, great. Thank you for that information.
And Stephen, can I just clarify real quick on the rapid rehousing question? It is on a case-by-case basis because it depends on who the landlord is, because if it's DCHA, you're unable to provide assistance directly to them. And so it will have to be determined by each of the CBOs.
Okay, and is there a reason why tenants who receive a voucher and subsidy aren't eligible for that funds? I see a lot of questions in the chat box pertaining to that.
Yes, and so that is a HUD requirement. So these are HUD funds that we have been given through the CARES CV Act to provide rental assistance. And so they are the ones who made the determination that essentially this would be a double. The vouchers are considered federal funding, and so this would be a second course of rental assistance for the individuals.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification. So the next question is for Mr. Childs from United Planning Organization. So you receive a call from a tenant. You got the application from the portal. What does the application process entail for tenants in the chat program? You're muted, sir.
Okay. Hi, everybody. So the first thing we do is review the application, make sure that the tenant has provided all of the supporting documents. Then the application is assigned to a counselor. That counselor then contacts the tenant, and they verify what the information on the application is correct. And if the tenant is approved, or if the applicant is approved, then we are able to process the application. Under normal circumstances, it takes about 10 to 14 days, but because of COVID and the number of applications that we received and the difficulty with having people email us and not being able to come in sometimes and doing it face-to-face, that time frame can be pushed back a little bit further. But in a nutshell, it's assigned to a counselor, and the counselor reviews all the information, and then they're able to make a determination of whether or not the applicant will be approved or not. And then we submit a payment request to our finance department, and they mail out the payment to the landlord at that point. And then that completes the process.
Okay. And so what type of documentation are you looking from the tenant, and what type of documentation are you looking from the landlord?
Well, from the tenant, there's a list of things. We need their photo ID, and sometimes we can work around things like that because, you know, during COVID, your ID can expire. You're not able to get an appointment with the DMV, so you might not have a valid driver's license or photo ID. So we'll work with the tenant as long as they can prove that they're in that house. We'll work with them. But they need a photo ID, their birth certificate, Social Security cards for themselves and their family members, their current lease, their rental ledger that the tenant can get from their landlord. They have to have a hardship that's COVID related, and we collect their bank information, their banking information, their bank statements, their proof of income, and once we verify that, then we contact the landlord and ask the landlord to provide us a W-9 form. And that's really all the information that we need from the landlord. So most of the information comes from the tenants, though, or the applicants.
Okay, great. And so after you get all these documentation, you get the money, and the money goes directly to the landlord, correct? The tenant doesn't see this money?
Correct. And just to clarify, the rental ledger is a ledger that the landlord keeps, and it tracks the payment history of the client or the applicant from the day that they move in and when they make their payments, their balance that they owe, and so on. So the ledger is one of the most important documents that we use because we have to know how much the landlord is going to be paid and how much the tenant owes.
Okay, great, awesome. And for Jay and for Sabrina, is it the similar process at Housing Counseling Services and Greater Washington Urban League, or do you guys have a different process?
Hi, for Housing Counseling Services, it is slightly different. After an application is submitted, that application is assigned to a processor, and the processor is in touch with the applicant about collecting the supporting documents needed to complete the application. So again, with Housing Counseling Services, after an application is received, that application is actually assigned to a processor, and that processor is in touch with the applicant in order to receive all of the supporting documents needed to complete the file. We do it that way because gathering the supporting documents can sometimes be a large task. For the chat program, we do ask for quite a bit of information, and we like to make sure every applicant gets one-on-one assistance with understanding the documents that we need, and sometimes one document sparks a question and we need further documents. So that's the way that we have put it together. Once the processor has everything that they need, then they submit the file together for review. And if the file is reviewed, it is sent on for approval. And when it's sent on for approval, a check will be mailed as well as an approval letter that will be sent to the applicant, and a letter and the check sent to the owner.
Okay, great. And Sabrina, do you have anything to add?
Yes, for Greater Washington Urban League, it's done about the same, slightly different. We do have a call center person that will actually answer any phone calls because we do have our own line, and we have an email address where we have clients to send in any questions, as well as doing the intake process. Once they do the intake process and they are able to complete an appointment slot, we will then have a coordinator reach out to that client, let them know what they would need. Well, first, let me back up. Then they will let them know if they qualify for the ERAP or chat. And then we will have them to send in the documentation, and then we will process them for the payment, whether it's for CHAP or for EREP. So it's along the same lines, just slightly different.
Okay, great. And I think there's a rumor, and I want to discontinue it or at least confirm it. If you use ERAP in the past year, that disqualifies you from the chat program. Is that correct?
Are you asking?
You since you're on. You know, if not, I'll ask Ms. Van Balen.
F4, would you like to chime in on that? You are the.
To my knowledge, if you've used it this year, no. If you used it last year, you can apply for CHAP, but it cannot be recently that you just got ERAP assistance.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So just to clarify, we essentially just can't have payments for the same months, but ERAP and CHAP can be done concurrently. The same with our TPRA program.
Okay. So they would have to pick one program or the other, or the system would identify whether they qualify a CHAP or ERAP, correct?
Right. So with ERAP, and rules may change a little bit, and I see Allison here. You can only apply once a year, but that's with this additional programs, then additional assistance can be provided for additional months, but not for the same months.
Okay. Right. Okay.
Excuse me, Stephen. Could we please make sure that the speakers who are with the CBOs introduce themselves and their agency that they're with and their title? Because I still don't know what people's titles are, and it just is helpful to know so that we don't ask them unnecessary.
Yes, I apologize for that. That was at the top of my thing. So yes, so what's if Jay and Sabrina and Ms. Van Balen and Mr. Childs, if you guys could just briefly introduce yourselves, which should have done at the beginning. So again, I apologize for that. And just your title within the agency. And then I have one last question about the chat program, and then we'll move into the tenant-based rental assistance program. So Ms. Van Balen, can you just introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Again, my name is Anna Van Balen. I'm the Affordable Housing Preservation Officer for the Department of Housing and Community Development. And so I oversee both of our rental assistance programs, which are specifically the tenant-based rental assistance program and the COVID-19 housing assistance program. And so I work very closely with our CBOs as it pertains to this process. And moving payments forward.
Great, thank you. Jay?
Hi, yes, my name is Jay Forth. I'm with Housing Counseling Services, and I'm a program manager in the Homelessness Prevention Program Department.
Great, thank you. Sabrina?
Yes, my name is Sabrina Tobias, and I am the program manager at Greater Washington Urban League.
And
I'm Ronald Childs. I'm with United Planning Organization. I'm the senior housing counselor.
Great. And the last question that I have for you guys that I did pose to Director Donaldson is we do get, unfortunately, some calls. We know it's very busy for everyone about the timing of the application process or sometimes a lack of response. What would you say to a tenant who has contacted us with those concerns is there any way that the OTA can assist you guys throughout this process? I'll open it up to anyone who wants to address that, from Jay, Ron, or Sabrina. Well, we'll start. We can. I can pick someone.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I can say for those who have reached out and have not gotten a response is sorry that you haven't gotten a response. Please reach out to me, and we are definitely doing our best to process all of the applications that we're getting. We do understand that this is an emergency, and we also understand that this is really hard for everyone here, and so we're just doing our best to process all of them. Please continue to reach out to us. Please continue to poke us and to make sure that we see you. We are also, again, processing your applications.
Yes, and they're very busy and just probably swarmed with many applications. The last subsection question with that is typically how long would you say it takes for the application process to be assigned and then funds to be administered? How long would you guys say? Ron, how long does it take United Planning Organization?
If we have everything from the tenant and the landlord, under normal pre-COVID circumstances, it would take between 10 and 14 days. Now it can take 30 to 45 days.
Okay.
It also depends on how quickly we get the information from the tenant. If we have to chase them down and ask them for additional information and they take a few days and since submitting it, then that's going to delay the process.
Okay. Jay, Sabrina, is
Add
it
one
similar
thing.
to? Yep.
Yeah, just adding one thing to that also. One of the things that can also, slow up the process is how the landlords are paid, if it is a check or if it's an ACH as well. We try to, of course, encourage the landlords to accept ACH payments as opposed to a check. So we have no control over USPS.
And HC payment stands for what?
I'm sorry, it's for direct deposits.
Okay. And Jay, anything to add?
Yeah, I want to echo that collecting documents is a big task for this program because we do ask to see all financial information, which includes pay stubs, but also bank accounts, that's checking and savings. But then we know that these days there's also Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, and so figuring out how to get pay stubs and not pay stubs, statements for those applications as well. We know that that's a tall order to kind of get all of that information, and this is for the past 60 days, so the past 2 months. That is a tall ask. So we, again, working closely with applicants to try to navigate all of the documents that we're requesting is a large part of the process.
Okay, great. Thank you. And thank you all for joining us. So right now we're going to transition to the tenant-based rental assistance program. I do see a lot of questions in the chat box, so I've been trying to compile those and asking them as we are going. Again, if we don't get to your question, Please, if you put your email at the end of the question, I can definitely reach out to you by the end of the week. We are trying to do our best. There is a lot of information that we want to go over and cover. So if you have a specific question and you think that we may not get to it, please include your email at the end of the question. What happens is before everyone signs off, I copy and paste the chat section and go through all the questions and try to respond to them. So please add your email to the end of your question just to ensure that I can reach out to you after. So again, we're going to move on to the tenant-based rental assistance program. So you've met Jay from Housing Counseling Services, but we also have a invited Angelica Rufino from LEDC. So I'd like her to introduce herself. So we're improving already. Have her introduce herself and her position at LEDC.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Angelica Rufino. I am the Housing Counseling Program Manager in our DC office for LEDC, and I am currently one of the managers who is overseeing the TBRA program for our organization.
Great, thank you for joining us. And the first question that I have for you, and Ms. Van Valen, please feel free to join in as well, is what does the program cover?
The TBRA program, the Tenant-Based Rental Assistance Program, covers up to 6 months of rental payments for any tenants who have been in part are going through, a hardship with COVID-19 starting since March when the city shut down, and the assistance is available until December the 31st. So we have tenants, it could be that you stop working in March, or probably along the way in June, July, or even currently that you're still being affected by COVID. We tell everyone to at least contact us to see if they could qualify for the program, and if not, we definitely refer them to CHAP or the ERAP program.
Okay, great. And who is eligible for the, I'm probably going, is it TBRAP, TBAP? What's the acronym for this program?
TBRA or TBRA?
Okay, TBRA, okay. So who is eligible for the TBRA program?
The tenants who are eligible for the TBRA program is anyone who has experienced hardship starting since March the 16th of this year because of COVID-19. Anyone who lives in an apartment building with 50 units or less. That's one of the biggest components of the TBRA program. And also you have to live in your unit starting from February 29, 2020 and before. Anyone who moved in after February 29th, it could be case by case basis because maybe you were in the process of your paperwork, but if you moved in after, then unfortunately you will have to be referred to other programs. And those are the main qualifications for the TBRA program.
Okay, and is it 80% median income like the CHAP program, or is it a different area median of income for that?
So the TBRA program is 60% median family income.
Okay, great. And what does the application process entail?
The application process for TBRA is more, you have to get in contact with us. Unfortunately, we're not a part of the portal like CHAP and the ERAP program. So we have a phone number that we have created specifically for the program where we ask everyone to text us. That would probably be the fastest way to get you on our radar. By sending us a text, you're more than welcome to call our main number also. And also by using an email address that we have created for special programs in LEDC during COVID, which is myhome@ledcmetro.org. And as soon as we receive your name, we have an intake, Google intake. As soon as we receive it, the turnaround probably is 24 hours, and we will get in contact with you to get more information from you, and also to see when did your hardship start, what is your family household composition, what is your unit size, because that's another component of TBRA. The assistance will be based on your unit size, and also what is the makeup of who holds the lease. That is another question that comes up a lot. It's who's on the lease, and whoever's on the lease, that will usually be the point of contact that we would like to speak with, aside from other household members in the household.
Great, great. And I do want to ask if Ms. Van Balen has anything to add, because I do know her and Director Donaldson do need to leave at 5. Ms. Van Balen, do you have anything to add about the TBRA program?
Yeah, so two very unique components of this program is one, and I mentioned this earlier, that we can do forward payments in addition to back payments. And so for those who know that they're unable to pay for the next 3 months, then this might be a good program for them because we can support them in that way. The second unique thing about this program is that we have been allowed to do self-certifications, which means that if someone is struggling to get the documentation they need to demonstrate their income because of COVID, that there is a way, it's essentially like a form that they can certify their income and to help the process go a little bit quicker. And so it is a very unique program. It does end at the end of this calendar year, December 31st. And so if you are in need, live in a small building of 50 units or less, I would highly encourage you to reach out to LEDC to learn more about the program and see if you're eligible.
Great. And the last question I have for you before you leave, and Director Donaldson as well. If, say, the pandemic unfortunately continues to go into next year and into the spring and summer, are these funds going to be available, and what would be the government's course of action if this pandemic continues to go further and further into the year?
Well, I think, Stephen, that obviously we don't know whether it is or isn't. It would be up to the council to extend the authority of the mayor to extend the emergency and indeed the components of the emergency, including the moratorium. We don't know what the situation will be like in December, and so I think that's a wait and see. The CHAP funds extend for an additional year, so they are not they will not expire. They're community development block grant funds. We are very much in need of some additional federal funding, a national rent assistance program. We're very actively involved in advocating for that, and that would supplement what we are anticipating to be a surge in the need for rent assistance after the end of the moratorium. And so I encourage folks who are able to also join in those advocacy efforts. I think that that's very important. I think obviously the upcoming election is very important for that as well, both for the presidency as well as for the two houses of Congress. And, in my mind, it's it's really, this is just absolutely crucial. The ERAP funds from Department of Human Services are appropriated for FY21, and they are for the entire duration of the fiscal year until they run out, unless the council or the mayor and the council together can put more funds in. But as we know, we're facing a very tight budget environment, and so we do know that that we are going to need additional assistance from the federal government, and we would hope that would come early in 2021. In any event, though, the funds are there until they are totally used, and they will not expire. Only the TBRA program home funds will expire December 31st, but that is why please apply now to LEDC, because they do still have funds on hand.
Great.
And thank you all very much. I'm sorry I scheduled this from 4 to 5 on my calendar, and I'm afraid I have another engagement, so I have to go to. But again, thank you all very much. Thank you, OTA, for hosting and for that. And again, folks should feel free to ask questions, and we will follow up. Thank you so much. Ruben Foreman will stay on the call as long as it lasts and be able to brief me on additional questions that may come up. Thank you again, Stephen.
Great. Thank you, Director Donaldson. Thank you, Ms. Van Balen. Definitely appreciate you guys coming and sharing this information. And if there's any questions, I'll definitely be forwarding it to you and your staff. So again, thank you so much for joining us and sharing such vital information.
Thank you for inviting us, and I leave you in the good hands of the CBOs that I work with. They're the ones who really do the hard work as it pertains to the rental assistance programs, and so I highly encourage you, even if you're unsure, even if you're not clear as to if you should do it now or later, I highly encourage you to do it now. Reach out, ask your questions, because you might be eligible to get assistance now, and we want to make sure that you are get the assistance you need. So when the real emergency hits later down the road, you're better prepared for that. So thank you so much.
Thank you. So Ms. Rufino, back to you. So something I just want to reiterate that Director Donaldson and Ms. Van Dalen has stated. This program is only into existence until the end of this year, this calendar year, to December 31st, correct?
Yes, it's only until December 31st.
Okay, and Housing Counseling Services is assisting you guys in managing this application process and the funds for this program?
Yes, we both received the same amount of funding from DHED, which was, I believe, a split between 1.5 million, which is $750,000. And our main goal is to make sure that we disperse the money at zero by the end of December 31st and help as many tenants as possible.
Okay. And the last question I have for you, and Jay from Housing Counseling Services, please feel free to chime in as well. When we're focusing on the median income, is that focusing on the monthly amount and the current status, say, for example, from when the pandemic ends, or is it based on the income that people reported on their taxes the last tax year?
You can take that one. I could piggyback from you, Jay.
Oh, sorry. You're asking about how we calculate monthly income?
Yeah. So is it just basically what has happened in the past 4 to 5 months, or say, for example, it's happened in the past year, or what individuals have been filing with taxes?
Yeah. So for us, we've been using that financial information that we collect in order to establish what someone's monthly income is. For the chat program, it's based on gross income. And so it's not only your paycheck, but any other sort of sources of income that might come through PayPal or Venmo. We have to take all of those into account and using those see whether someone falls within the 80% of AMI. Again, that's why we ask for more than pay stubs. We ask for bank accounts, savings accounts, and transaction histories from those other apps. But we do look at those 60 days and use that as the measure for someone's monthly income. So not necessarily what they got the whole year, but in those past 60 days. Angelica?
Yes, we do the same because as we know, from January to March, your income could have been completely different from March until now. So we mostly focus on the last 60 days and what your income is looking like or whatever is being brought into the household, because a lot of people are still not working or either have gone back to work on reduced income. So we definitely look at that and take that into account when calculating income for the TBRA program.
Okay, great, thank you. And the last question that I have for you guys about the TBRA program, and I just want to say TBRA Zebra, but with the TBRA program, it is what information would you recommend tenants to have, and is it similar? The documentation that you're requesting through the chat program is very similar or on point with the TBRA program?
The TBRA program actually asks for a little bit less than CHAP and ERAP. As Anna mentioned before, it's a little bit more lenient in the process that if you do not have bank statements or if you're still afraid to go to a branch to get bank statements, you could do a self-sufficiency letter. The trick that we kind of use is we ask applicants to call their bank and to see what was their balance as of today. That way they could still demonstrate that they have, demonstrate a self-sufficiency letter stating reasons why they couldn't get their bank statements and what is their current balance. Another component, we still ask for IDs. We need something with your picture. But with the TIBA program, we can allow passports or either photo IDs from whatever country the applicant is from. We don't ask for Social Security or birth certificates, but we do take into account if children are in the household. And another component of the TIBA program is you do have to go through a virtual lead inspection. So that is a component with TBRA in order for the person to be 100% cleared to receive the TBRA funding that I believe that CHAP and ERAP probably are not doing at the moment. Another component, you do need to provide pay stubs for every household member over the age of 18. And we also need, I can actually look at the checklist of documents. We also need a letter of self-sufficiency if there was a loss of income, and we need a copy of your lease because we do have to verify that you do live in that apartment actively and just not applying for the program just to receive funding from everywhere.
Okay, great. And Jay, anything to add?
Yeah, I would agree that we do require almost all of those same application requirements as well. For us, for the CHAP, when I say us, for the CHAP program, we do require some documentation of the COVID-related emergency. This has been a tricky area because everyone is affected by COVID in so many different ways, but all those ways are very real. And so figuring out how to document that is very important. One obvious one is if there's a loss of employment, a notice from your employer stating that there was a loss of employment due to COVID would be one way of documenting it. If there is an increase in expenses, that might be helpful. If there is an increase in utilities, one idea would be to show the utility from, let's say, August 2020 compared to August 2019 to show kind of the increase in utilities. But there are other ways that people have experienced, have been impacted by COVID. And so again, the processors are going to be the greatest source for working with applicants to figuring out how to document that impact.
Okay.
But that is required for our application.
Okay.
Yes, and just to add, it's also a case-by-case situation. Whatever could be the case for Jay might not be the case for myself if we're applying for the same program. So even if you're unsure, just please call us and get in contact with us, and we'll let you know 100% how to proceed with the application process.
Okay, awesome. And yes, everyone should have received the flyer from LEDC with the number, and I'm sure Angelica will put the number again in the chat section. I did see two questions that I do want to address now. One, if your license is expired or your photo ID is expired, does that count? And two, individuals who are undocumented or don't have a social security card or number, are they eligible for these programs as well?
If your ID is expired, and I did see another component of the question was, but it is not the same address. As long as that we can verify that your name is on the lease, you will probably have to give us a little bit more documentation, like probably a bill that also has your name associated with the address. And then we can go from there. And also if you probably have a passport or anything else that has your photo ID, we can use that, or either just write a letter of explanation of why your ID is expired, and maybe you have booked an appointment with the DMV, but it will take months before you can go to the DMV to be seen. In regards to a person who is undocumented, one component of the program, we do not ask for your status. So you could definitely apply for the program. That is between you. And if you do disclose that with us, we won't add that towards your application. And then that is not a question on the TBRA application either.
Okay. And Jay, does the documentation status, does that apply to the CHAP program, or individuals who are undocumented, are they able to reap the benefits of the program?
It's my understanding that CHAP is not available for people who are undocumented. That is my understanding. So if an application comes to us, if there is a clear case of someone not being documented, that would be something that would be a flag for us to at least start the application process. It's my understanding that under CHAP, we're not able to process housing assistance for someone who's undocumented.
Okay. and that's a good distinction about the two. So thank you, Angelica. Thank you, Jay, for this information. We're a little bit behind schedule, but not too much. But we're going to transition to the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. I'd like to invite to the screen from DHS, Department of Human Services, Miss Allison Tucker, from Greater Washington Urban League, Miss Afua Amoa, I hope I pronounced that name right, and from United Planning Organization, Mr. Childs again. Please, Ms. Tucker, introduce yourself, and the others, please introduce yourselves after Ms. Tucker.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Allison Tucker. I'm the homeless coordinator at the Department of Human Services, and I oversee the Emergency Rental Assistance Program for ERAP.
Great. Ms. Amoa?
Yes. Hi, everybody. My name is Ms. Amora. I am the senior ERAP caseworker at the Greater Washington Urban League.
And Mr. Childs, please introduce yourself again.
Hi, I'm Ronald Childs. I'm the senior housing counselor at United Planning Organization.
Great, thank you. So the first question, and I'm going to direct this to Ms. Tucker. What does ERAP cover?
Hi, yes. So ERAP covers back rent payments as well as first month's rent and security deposit. So you could, if you needed one or the other, we could assist with that.
And how much of the rent does ERAP cover?
So currently, ERAP can provide up to $4,250 or back rent for 5 months, whichever is the lower amount. And we can provide up to $900 for first month's rent and up to $900 for security deposit.
Okay. And in regards to ERAP, do you need to have an active writ or anything, or how are you eligible, I guess is a better question for ERAP.
Right. So no, you do not have to have a writ. I think that's a common misconception out there, that you have to have a writ in order to receive this assistance, but you do not. That may be a misconception because there is a time when, let's say, we're running out of funds, and people might have a writ versus you're a month behind. We will prioritize people who have writs so that we can keep them housed. And we would put someone who's just a month or two behind, you know, second in line to the person who could be evicted tomorrow. So you don't have to have a writ to apply for ERAP.
Great. And
I do have one more clarification. That amount of back rent goes up to $6,000 if there is a disability in the household or the household size is more than 8.
Okay, so it's $4,250 or the value of 5 months rent, whichever is lower. If there's a person with disability or the size of family exceeds 8, that gets bumped up to $6,000, correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. And your involvement with ERAP is you oversee the program, but there's actually 6 community-based organizations that administer the funds, correct?
Correct. So there's 6 organizations. I manage the program from the DHS side. We are the agency that provides the funding to the 6 grantees in the city. And the grantees are Greater Washington Urban League, United Planning Organization, Salvation Army, which has 2 locations, Housing Counseling Services, the Community Partnership for the Prevention of Homelessness, or TCP, and Catholic Charities.
Great, great, awesome. So with that, I'm going to ask Ms. Amoa, who is eligible for the ERAP program, and what is the ERAP process for Greater Washington Urban League?
Okay, yes. So DC residents are eligible if they're behind on their rent at least 30 days or more. At the Greater Washington Urban League, we assist individuals, families, seniors, households with disabilities. The process right now for Greater Washington Urban League is due to COVID. Unfortunately, we are working from home, so they would have to go online and do an assessment. I added the quick base link for individuals to do the pre-assessment, and then they would go ahead and click on the calendar for Greater Washington Urban League, and they will they will schedule an appointment with either me or one of the other caseworker, which is Ms. Cummings.
Okay.
Once we receive their information, we call and email them. We send out the application to them. Everything right now is done virtually, so they would send us their documents and their application back.
And so I know there's some confusion that people sometimes get confused between CHAP and the ERAP, especially if they fill out that form on a DHS portal. But that system will identify whether you qualify to CHAP or whether you qualify for ERAP, correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. And so, Ron, to you, Mr. Childs, what is the application process for ERAP for a United Planning Organization?
It's similar to CHAP. The only difference is with ERAP, more documentation is required. CHAP is a little bit requires a little bit less information from the applicant, but it's the exact same process. They contact us. We can either email them an application or they can go in the portal. They complete their application, submit it via email, or they can bring it into the office and drop it off along with their documents. And then it's assigned to a counselor, and then the counselor will contact them if additional information is needed, or they will contact them to verify the information on the application is correct. And once it's approved, we send it off to our finance department, and then they mail the check out to the landlord.
Right. And with the eligibility requirement, we heard from the other presenters that for a CHAP, it's 80% of the area median income. For TBRA, it's 60% for the area median income. Is there a certain area median income component for ERAP?
Yes, it's 125. It's 125% below poverty.
Okay.
So the income guidelines are very low to receive assistance for ERAP.
Okay. And everyone is entitled to ERAP, right? If you're a voucher or a subsidy recipient, you can utilize ERAP, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, awesome. Is there, Ms. Tucker, to you, is there anything that tenants should be aware of when they apply for the ERAP program?
Aware of, such as
documentation, anything, or common misconceptions out there?
I'm not sure about the misconceptions, but we do require some of the documents that have been mentioned earlier. I know that Jay from Housing Counseling mentioned some of the documentation that they require for CHAP, but we also require most of the same. We do need an ID. We do not require a social security card, but we do ask for it if you have it. One reason it's because we, it's an easy way for us to track people over time through all of our programs at DHS, but it's not something that's a requirement. We will assist people who are undocumented. So that's, we will help anyone who is a DC resident and who has a lease in DC. The other misconception, which was a question earlier, was the writ question. So again, you do not need to have a writ in order to apply. If you're applying for first month's rent or security deposit, you can use it to mainly, if you're coming out of homelessness or there's a terrible situation in your current unit, you can apply for ERAP to help you move by providing $900 for a security deposit for first month's rent.
Yeah, and is there a place on the application that you can acknowledge whether you're applying for assistance or whether you're applying for a security deposit or first month's rent? How do you distinguish that?
Yes, so they're on the application, on the online application, you can check which one you're applying for. You cannot receive both, so that might be a misconception. You can't, let's say you've not paid your rent for whatever reason for the past 2 months, but you're trying to move, you can't get both. So you could get the first month's rent and security deposit to help you move out of that current situation.
Okay, and it's only for money going back, not like the TBRA program where it can be allocated for future funds. Okay, so
Yes.
would you say, and please, Mr. Childs and Mr. Mullen, please chime in, would you say it's best for tenants to wait, especially if they know that they will have a sizable amount to wait a little bit and then apply for ERAP, or would you say they should apply for it immediately, even though they may not be able to show or be able to pay their rent going forward?
So I would say apply when you need the assistance. We don't want to see a surge of people trying to get help, at the last minute, and you wait until it's too late and all the funding is gone. So if someone needs assistance now and they're behind, we would encourage you to go ahead and apply. There's not a reason to wait. If you are behind in your rent, just go ahead and apply.
Okay. Ms. Moore, Mr. Childs, do you have anything to add?
I'm sorry, go ahead, Emma.
No, she basically summed it up. Sometimes we do get clients that will say, well, I don't have this month's rent, or I know I won't have, like because of the COVID, they know they won't have their next 2 months. Sometimes when we tell them that, you have to wait at least 30 days before when you're behind on your rent to apply. So sometimes they will wait until they know that they owe those other 2 months before applying for the ERAP program.
Okay. And does the ERAP program factor into preservability of the tenancy? I think sometimes we get calls from tenants that people may be inquiring whether they can preserve the tenancy, and this may be before pre-COVID, that they would have to show that they could pay their rent continuing after they receive ERAP. Is there such a requirement? And does that requirement apply during the pandemic? I would ask Ms. Moa, Mr. Childs, or Ms. Tucker if you know the answers to the question. So again, the question is there a preservability component to it, that when you're assessing someone's funds, that you need to show, the tenant needs to show that if they get this ERAP funding, that they can continue to preserve their tenancy, that they have their income coming in to be able to show that they can continue being a tenant at this unit.
So
I'll jump in and say something about that. So what we do require customers to show proof that they will be able to sustain the unit moving forward. If not, then we offer them case management so that they can work with us to help them get back on track so they can sustain their household. What we don't for someone to be evicted, and if there's a way for them to continue to receive the funding, but then also say that they will work with the housing counselor at whatever agency to, help them maintain, then we will assist them. Mr. Childs or Ms. Amoa, if you want to add to that.
So usually what we do when we know that someone can't sustain the rent going forward, we refer them to our workforce development division, and they assist them in acquiring gainful employment to offset their inability to pay their rent going forward.
Great. Yeah, and I think it's great, and especially that community service or that council working. Ms. Moa, I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
Oh, no, you didn't. I was just going to agree with them. Yes, we have counselors and house counselors that we send our clients to that would assist them with seeking employment or more affordable housing when that's the case.
Okay. And is that true now? Because I feel a lot of tenants may be not able to show that they can pay their rent going forward in the pandemic time. Are they afforded a case manager, or is it, how does that work since the times have significantly changed due to the pandemic?
At this time, no. We don't require them if they can't due to the pandemic. So that's not a requirement right now. But before pandemic, yes.
Okay. And the last question that I have for you guys, is oh my gosh, I just blanked. One, that you can only apply for this once every 12 months. And two, the second question, here we go, we got it back. 5:30 is around the corner. Is that two, is that ERAP has been known to lose funding or have the funding dry up in the middle of the fiscal year. Do you forecast that to happen again? And therefore, it's upon the tenants to not wait and get involved with the ERAP services. So I'll direct that to Ms. Tucker first.
So that is correct. Traditionally, the ERAP funds have run out before the end of the fiscal year. This year, believe it or not, we did not. And a lot of that had to do with the current health pandemic. A lot of people were not applying for assistance. One, because of the moratorium on evictions. So we saw a significant drop in applications starting, March through, let's say, July. But then it started to pick up in July, August, and September. And so all of our providers were able to spend all of their funding, but it did last until the end of the fiscal year. Next year, our budget is actually almost doubling. ERAP last year was about $7.8 million. This year, it's over $14 million. So it sounds like a lot more funding, which it is. We're hopeful that it will last the entire fiscal year. And, there are things that are going to be changing with ERAP pretty soon, which could allow for the funding to go faster. And I will throw this out there really quickly. I know that Mr. Childs had mentioned that right now we are using the federal poverty guideline, which is 125% of the federal poverty level, which is an extremely low level to look at someone's monthly income. When our regulations shift and change, we will be using area median income as well. And so that could be happening, within weeks or in the next month. But just be on the lookout, and we'll be sure to communicate that with the OTA so that you can help disseminate this information to all the people that are on this call. And we'll also be putting out materials that will talk about the changes that are coming up. But this is something that will change and could potentially affect how fast the funding is spent. Because with the income level changing, that means more people will be eligible for that assistance. So just be aware of that for this year.
Great, great. That's awesome. And I guess we can say you heard it first here, but we'll wait until the official announcement. So it's right now it's 5:31, and I said that the time is from 4 to 5:30. So I want to thank all our presenters from all the community-based organizations. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to answer all these questions and provide such vital information to the tenants, as well as how each program differs. For everyone who's attended, what I am going to do is I'm going to go through the chat box and locate any questions that we didn't miss, and also consolidate everything, all the information in the chat. I'll probably send out a survey. I'll resend all the handouts again, as well as a breakdown of what was in the chat box, so you can have that. Please expect that by Friday. Yes, if you have any questions or concerns, you can contact the OTA. You can reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to get you in contact with the panelists. I hope this is fruitful for you guys. For updates in regards to OTA, I know many of you know that we did not host a tenant summit this year because of the pandemic. So we're looking to have more of these meetings and sessions and events to be able to get the word out on different available resources to you guys, as well as continue to work and network and partner up with the great work that other nonprofits and government agencies are doing as well. So for that, thank you all for attending. Presenters, thank you again. I can't thank you enough. Again, this video has been recorded. If you guys are okay with that recording, we will put it up on our website. And again, any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, the OTA staff, and the community-based organizers that you have that were present today. Again, thank you, and have a great night. And I'll stay on just for a couple of minutes if there's any follow-up questions. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.